Again, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. Hosting this event has always been a pleasure. And the thing I like the most about it is that, people come from all over the place to this event. We've had Big Mark come from Jacksonville, Florida every year for like 18 years, and other people have driven a distance, so that's really cool. But I really want to welcome the new folks, the people that are coming in here from recovery houses. You can get clean and have fun, and this is what this event is about, is learn how to, enjoy your life in recovery, food, fun, and fellowship. So I want to welcome all the new people, and I also want to welcome all the kids. It's really nice to have the kids here playing, having fun, carving pumpkins, playing ball. I really like that too. Tonight we got a speaker, somebody that I really care a lot about. I had met Mike, I don't know exactly when, but I'd met him prior to 2012. But at the East Coast in Pittsburgh in 2012, we ended up being roommates. It's always on a college campus, so we were rooming in a dormitory. And Mike was getting ready to host the next convention in 2013. And he and I started talking, and he inspired me to come home and put a bid in for 2014. And that's where our friendship really started. He's somebody that I really care a lot about. He's about service. He's about H&I. He does a lot for other people in his community. He's got recovery center there. He's just constantly helping people. And he's always doing service work. And I really admire him a lot. He's somebody I call a close friend. So I'm going to give you Mike R.
Acme Mike. Man, it's really good to be here. Jeff has probably invited me to this, I don't know, at least 4 or 5 years. And, it's a busy world. There's a lot going on. You have to make choices and stuff. And, with all the conventions canceled and stuff, he said, hey, you want to come? One way to get me somewhere is to ask me to speak. If I can make it happen, I'm going to do it. So I'm really honored to be asked to be your speaker. Hopefully I share something good. Jeff told me I could talk as long as I wanted. And so I'll try to share something worthwhile, so it'll be okay, Look, everyone's got by the time you get here, everyone's got a story of addiction. You all know what addiction is like. And you know it for you. I'm not going to talk about drugs, but I am going to talk about I started getting into trouble. I have a 10-year-old son, and I don't know if the beginning of trouble for me is not knowing how to behave. So I was at school this last week for him, and he's getting disciplinary action for the 7th time, and he's on in-home suspension for Monday. And I'm not mad at him because I relate. This is what I was like. I was in trouble in 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade. My mom would guilt me. She would say, oh, Michael, we didn't raise you to be like this. Can't you act right? And guilt doesn't help. It didn't help me. It didn't help me act right. And I love this kid, this son of mine. And look, my behavior was antisocial. So probably the last 4 years of my active addiction, my mom was trying to get me help. And in Delaware, where I grew up, there wasn't really any Narcotics Anonymous. There were probably 3 NA meetings at the beginning of '85 in all of Delaware. And the last time she tried to help me, I found out about Narcotics Anonymous in a psych hospital. Now, my mom probably made 5 good, solid attempts trying to get me help and didn't believe that any of them were going to work. And then after I was clean, she didn't believe I was actually clean. I'd walk in the house and she'd pick up her pocketbook. And I'd be like, Mom, are you going to the store? You should get me a soda. She'd be like, no, I am not going to the store, and glare at me. Look, this is what addiction does. It makes the people that love you the most, that care about you the most, afraid of you. So, I never know how I'm going to start talking. I don't know what's most important to you guys. I really would like to share something you could identify with. And I know, look, and I know in my earliest NA meetings, people talked about obsession, compulsion, and total self-centeredness. And, the first reading in the first meeting that I was at was Who is an Addict? Now, I know that when I was at that first meeting of mine, the guy that wrote Who is an Addict had written it 25 years before, but I didn't know that. And the last sentence, 5 sentences, right? The last sentence of Who is an Addict says that our ends are always the same: jails, institutions, and death. And I'd been looking at the people that I used with before that meeting. And some of them had been to treatment and they came home and they used right away. Some of them had gone to jail. Some of them were like me and they'd caught a bunch of charges. They'd gotten into trouble because of, because of getting and using and finding ways and means to get more, and what that brings. And I was in a lot of trouble. And for whatever reason, I was at the psych hospital where I found out about NA, and I decided that I would pay attention. And I even decided that I would go to meetings after I got out of there. And so, like I said, I'd listened to that, and I understood jails. I understood what time was hanging over my head for the things that I had done. And I didn't understand what really had gotten me to NA. I understood by working the steps with my sponsor about powerless over addiction. It's really the thing that drove me into paying attention and thinking maybe I should check out this Narcotics Anonymous. Do I really qualify? Revolved around the pain that I was in, the trouble I was in, the wreckage of my life. The last month before I went to the psych hospital, I wrecked a car, and then I lied to the cops about wrecking the car. And then I went home, and my dad bought me another car, and in 2 days, I wrecked that car. And, talking about some unmanageability. And this is like, if you'd have bought me another car, I probably would have wrecked it in half the time. I had some deals going. I was supposed to pay my dad for my auto insurance. It was $60 a month. And every month I was sorry that I didn't have the $60. I mean, I carried a lot of shame over addiction. My dad would just pay. And, he felt that addiction is something that his son's going to grow out of. And some people think that stuff. So for real, for the first time, I was going to take responsibility for addiction and face my problem, come to Narcotics Anonymous meetings. And I had signed a contract. I moved back to my parents' house. There were no recovery houses when and where I got clean. There were 11 NA meetings in northern Delaware where I was. And I said I would go to 3 NA meetings a week. And my parents did not want to drive me to these meetings. So they took me to the first one, the second one. By the third one, I was riding my bike. If you've seen me riding my bike, you would think I was all about fitness. Until you saw me smoking a cigarette, and then you would know it was my car. People would say, Mike, you should call me and I'll give you a ride at the meeting. And I'd say, all right, man. And then they'd see me at the meeting on my bike and they'd say, man, you have a really hard head. And I'm like, I know, I'm self-sufficient. I'm going to do this myself. And I didn't know fellowship. I didn't know what you guys wanted from me. Man, it's really amazing the transformation that happened in me from being the frightened loner that came here looking to extract the help that I was going to squeeze out of you so I could get back to whatever life was supposed to be now that I'm not using. Like my idea, it's so great that you told me, Mike, you only have to do these things, These are our recommendations to help you stay clean. Go to a meeting every day for at least the first 90 days. Find a sponsor and follow his or her direction. Pray for help in the morning. Thank God at night. Get a home group and go every week and help another addict. And these suggestions, are really a great set of things. And I really feel like some of them I did and some of them, and don't use no matter what. And some of these things I did really well and some of them I didn't do at all. Early clean time. And what I found out is that the only suggestions that you have to pay for in Narcotics Anonymous are the ones that you don't take. And so, for as hard as my recovery was for the things that I didn't do, over time I started doing more and more of the things. I'd hear people share about how they did them and the magic that it worked for them, or the help that it was, the real help, the real change that they did. And I did more of the things. So, you know, uh, early clean time, I told people what I was like. I didn't share in any meetings. It's okay if you're afraid to share in the meeting. I didn't feel like I was worth sharing in the meeting. But people would say, hey, Mike, how are you? What's going on? How do you feel? And I would talk to people before the meeting. I would grab a reading and read during the reading. I was glad to pick up a key tag. I was glad to get to the meeting early and get a couch seat. And, I was glad to hang out after. It took a little bit of pushing on me to get me to go out to drink coffee with you, but I did, especially if you were going to bum me cigarettes and give me $1. I was down. And you talked me into going to take the high school equivalency classes, because in a couple conversations you'd say, man, you're really smart, Mike. Why don't you do something with your life? And so I signed up and I took the classes, and by the fall I was at the university taking classes. And, and probably by the winter, someone had talked me into going to an NA convention. I had thought that I'd hear about these weekends that you guys would do, and you'd hug each other and go to meetings all weekend. And I was like, man, it's enough that I just go to a couple meetings. It's enough that I go to a meeting every day. I don't know that I want to spend my whole weekend doing this. But, after my first convention, I was like, this was pretty incredible. I heard a message that was beyond what I had understood about Narcotics Anonymous. I heard the first guy that I ever met that had over 10 years clean speak. And in fact, he probably had, he probably had like about 17 years clean. And that was like beyond anyone I'd come in contact with. In my area, there was a guy with 7 years, a couple people with 2 or 3. And that was good enough for me, man. This program works. I had been told that if I really wanted to make it, I wouldn't even go to Narcotics Anonymous. I should go to a different 12-step fellowship. And I went there and looked around and said, I don't want what you guys have. I identify with addicts. This is where I belong. And, what I've realized, joining Narcotics Anonymous and staying clean and asking for help and staying clean when I didn't feel like it, sharing about my feelings in meetings, that what I was really asking for was life on life's terms, something that I never wanted before. And I found out that I really could live what I thought about fun. Like, I realized that, when caught in the grips of active addiction, I'd be coming home at like 6 o'clock in the morning and the birds would be chirping and I would be like, what? How dare you? And I'd see people like riding to their jobby jobs and I'm like, my goal was to, rip people off, commit some crimes, sell drugs, and I didn't not want to have a job. So I'd see you going to your job, and I'd say to myself that you wish that you could use like me, only you just didn't have the balls. I mean, I really lived in a total distorted sense of society, and the reality is, I didn't know anything about fun. I didn't know how to have a friend or be a friend. I didn't know how to care about people. And I rolled up on meetings trying to extract the help that I could get. And I just started listening to people. And initially, I would listen to you for what are you saying that can help me now? And over time, it changed into let me just listen to everything that everybody has to say because it may not apply now, but maybe someday what you've said could help me. And the act of doing that caused me to care about the people. I would listen to your story and your problems, and people would say, why don't you pray about that? Why don't you turn it over to God's care? Why don't you call your sponsor? Why don't you work the steps? Why not turn it over? Don't quit, surrender. And I'd hear a lot of bumper sticker kind of cliche things. That's really what we had. People would say, work the steps or die. That was really prevalent in my area when I got clean. And it's good advice. If no one's worked the steps, just say work the steps or die. Nothing like hearing the experience of people talk about working the steps and how they actually did it and the changes that they went through and how fulfilled they were in their life. I mean, for real, that's what's happened around me in a fellowship. I think Narcotics Anonymous is probably 10 or 12 times as big as it was when I got clean. And for real, joining NA when I did, it is like I have really been given the gift of watching your lights come on, you know. I used to think Narcotics Anonymous was a lot like a zombie movie in reverse. The Walking Dead would shamble up in here, and you'd stop using, and things would start to come back together, and the spark would come back in your eye, and your dreams would come back. And then you'd have, you know, family and be employable and have legal vehicles and live in a house with water and electric and, you know, you know, for real, like get our lives back. And that's the miracle that Narcotics Anonymous is. And, you know, so I realized that by, you know, coming here and saying, I'm going to live the NA way, that I really got life on life's terms. And Narcotics Anonymous has given me a lot of gifts. You know, in the time that I've been clean, someone had talked me into going to a service meeting, and I really found that by, you know, being involved in service, there's a lot of different ways that it's, you know, plugged me into Narcotics Anonymous and kept me grounded into what's going on. And since I had been invited to go to area service, I've had a service position in Narcotics Anonymous ever since, you know, and it's really, you know, in a lot of ways, NA has given me something that you just don't get on your own, you know. The act of being able to help another recovering addict, having a sponsor, you know, being able to share honestly with my sponsor has really been magic, because I didn't come in here with a belief in a higher power, with good feeling vocabulary. Like, I didn't have words to describe how I felt. I just knew that, you know, drugs sucked. I hurt. I'm just a dumb freaking guy trying to make the pain stop. And this is really basic. You know, that Narcotics Anonymous has given me the ability to make choices about my life. There's so many times where I would stop and look at my life in active addiction and say, how did I get here? I really didn't feel like I wanted this, and I didn't make these choices. But, you know, addiction made these choices for me, or the judge made choices for me, or consequences of my action made choices for me. And by being here and taking direction from my sponsor, I have been able to figure out what I want to do with my life and make choices, you know, and for that, you know, I've been able to have relationships that mattered. Boy, my oldest daughter is coming up on her birthday here at the end of the month, and that will make a 27-year anniversary that I've been a father. And for, you know, even a person with clean time, I was pretty irresponsible when she was born. It was reckless abandon that even conceived her in the first place. And, you know, I thought I was having fun, and then, boy, here's this baby, you know. And for real, you know, I never held a job before then that mattered. And, you know, I prayed and turned my will over to God's care. I'd worked through all 12 steps at that point, and I said, God, what do you want me to do with my life? And a guy called me and said, hey, come take this job. And I moved from my area to Maryland a little over 27 years ago now. And, you know, I am so pleased when I look at my kids, and it's like, man, here's a kid that is not an addict, that has, you know, listen, you've sat through probably more meetings than a lot of you. And she knows, you know, about Narcotics Anonymous. She was telling me this story about how she was in a car wreck, and her mom stole her pain pills, and how she confronted her mom about, you know, Mom, I had this prescription for pain medication, and I didn't take it, and you've taken it all. And her mom was greatly offended and hurt. And that's what we do. That's how we handle it. We take other people's pain medication. It's like, oh, score. My daughter didn't finish her pain meds. And, you know, I think about that lady, and, you know, I wish she could find recovery. She's got 25 years out, not working a program and suffering from it. And in a lot of ways, you know, powerless over addiction has always meant that we can carry the message to each other. And for real, like I don't even know how come I'm the guy that decided that I would pay attention, why I decided that I wanted this message. Because I really think that probably the biggest question anyone asked me in my early clean time was, do you have a desire to stop using? Do you want this, Mike? And part of figuring out that I'm powerless over addiction was a real honest assessment of what was going on in my life. And the drugs that I was taking prior to getting clean caused me to have seizures, caused me to black out, caused me to vomit. I would drive cars and not remember how I got where I was going. And so the truth for me is that if I didn't get clean when I was getting clean, I was going to die in a big drug deal, or I was going to wreck my car into something or some unsuspecting people, or I was going to stop breathing. My friends are the kind of friends that would have rolled me up in a carpet. And because I know people, they rolled up in a carpet. One of my friends got rolled up in a carpet and thrown in a trash, in a dumpster, and he was in there. He came to, and he was screaming, and somebody found him, heard him, and pulled him, rolled up in a carpet out, and unrolled him. And what a great story. I wasn't there, but he told me this story. I mean, people are liars and stuff. Like, my friends are great liars. I believe it's true, He said as soon as he got unrolled, he ran. So that's great. Like, some things you just don't know, until it actually happens to you. He also told me that he'd been sick of using, he'd been around NA for 3 years, but he'd relapsed a bunch of times, and he got on the waiting list at the state rehab in Delaware, and he started going to meetings because he really wanted to be clean. And around his 1 year anniversary, they called him and said his bed was ready. So he said, give it to someone that got on the list today. What a great guy. I love John G. And I think about some of the people every once in a while. Not sure why I thought of him just now. But, no, he's the guy that got rolled up in the carpet. That's why I thought of him. And so for me, I assessed what addiction is really like for me. And two things happened to me in early clean time. I had decided that I would stay clean and get my attendance slip signed and go to every meeting I could. And the two things that happened that really stood out in my mind were that my friend Beth called, and Beth used to call me if she was having a bad trip. And I would talk her down, and I guess the soothing sound of my voice would calm her, or I'd say something trippy, and I don't even know. And she called to say, Mike had been selling this LSD, and they were distributing it on sugar cubes, and that her 7-year-old son had gotten the cubes and eaten them all, and what should she do? And for me, I think about these people. This is a phone call from 33 years ago. And I think about these people. I think about her son. And the advice that I had for her was, because for real, it's our families that pay consequences. It's our lives, and the things that we do in active addiction have untold consequences to the people around us, to the people we love the most. And that's what she got, right? And I said, number one, how could you do this to him? Number two, call poison control. And I hung up on her. Because I don't know what to do with that. This is something that, I wasn't a parent, but for real, how could you? And I'm not trying to draw up anything terrible if you've got neglect in your household. Recovery makes a way for a lot of healing, And I believe she did what I told her to do. I'm not exactly sure. The second thing that happened, right, because people had been in accidents, people that were close to me. I'd been to funerals for guys that were my age, and it was like, how did this even happen? My friend Mike A., his phone number was 475-6886, and he was born in 68, and he died in 86. So weird, man. I went to his funeral, and so, I had about 4 months clean, and my friend Dave had been doing drugs for 5 days in a row, no sleep, and his house caught on fire, but he was asleep at that point. And he burned. He burned over 90% of his body, but they got him out, and they got him over to the hospital, and he lived for 3 or 4 days, but he died of pneumonia. My friend. And it said on his death certificate, died of pneumonia. but I believe he died of addiction. We put a lot of different things on people's death certificates, and for me, when I heard that, I didn't go to his funeral. I was like, screw him. I shared about it in a meeting, and they said, Mike, if you can't handle the feelings that go with this, jails, institutions, and death, our ends are always the same. You don't have to. We understand. And I said a prayer for him. I didn't go to his services. But for real, it really brought it home for me how real it is. And the only person that can recover for you, the only person that can recover for me is me. The only person that can recover for you is you. I don't know. People have been talking about the opioid crisis. I've been watching people overdosing, that have hung around meetings and didn't do this for the whole time I've been here, since before. It's always happened. Narcotics Anonymous has paved a way for a new option. Jails, institutions, and death isn't it. Recovery is something that you can do. And that is really something to be excited about. For me, it's like it's my life. I didn't die. My mom didn't throw a shovel of dirt in my face trying to figure out what suit she was gonna put on my 108-pound body. And so, look, man, that's the motivation to me getting clean. I'm not sure why I'm going off in this direction. Jeff said I could share as long as I wanted. And he also told me, look, for real, this is a fundraiser for East Coast Convention that you guys would like to host here in Virginia in 2022. It's the greatest. I think you wanted to do it in 2021. I wanted to do it in 2020. I'm not sure why I wanted to do it. I already did it once, and it was like, man, I already did it once. Why do I want to do it again? Man, I do. I want to do it again. I'm on a committee of people that are like, hey, man, let's get the old gang back together. Coronavirus snapped off, and they were like, man, we're going to cancel this thing. And so at our last host meeting, we were talking about what we're doing. We're like a year and a half into a 1-year commitment. And, what they said at the meeting was, let's not meet for the next 3 months. We've got the convention completely smashed out. All we got to do is, work hard at the end. We know exactly what we want to do. And if we don't have the convention in 2021, if the state of Maryland doesn't open up because of coronavirus, let's not do it. This is a 2-year commitment, and we're done. So, man, I'm just like, pray, turn it over, see what God wants to do in a lot of ways. When I showed up at the East Coast Convention at Robert Morris in 2012, and then I got up in the morning, and I'm like, Jeff and Alan are my roommates. What's up, you guys? What's up with Virginia? I have a love affair with Virginia Narcotics Anonymous. Someone said, let's go to some conventions, and by 89, I was like, all right, let's go to all the conventions we can go to. Like any good thing, let's do as much as we can. And I came to AVCNA 7 in 1989 in Williamsburg, and I went to 9 of 10 Virginia conventions over the next 10 years. And made a bunch of friends down here. It was like, you show up on the convention, it's like, hey, here's people I seen last year. The people that came here for 20 years to enjoy the Brunswick stew. Man, you got a great spot here, Jeff. You have a big heart opening up your home and your site to do this. I love you so much, man. I cannot believe, when I see people's vision for NA service, sometimes it just blows my mind. It inspires me to do stuff, to be something better, It's my experience that has really changed, like who I am and what I want, what I think is fun, and how I want to carry the message, So, I rolled up on your things, and then my family changed what they were doing for Christmas. I come from a big Italian family out of Connecticut, and they said, we're going to start having our Christmas event, the first or second weekend in January, and it changes what you want to do. It's like, well, most of the people in my family prayed for me before I got clean. My grandmother lit candles at the church and all this stuff, Grandma, she would say, oh, man, Grandma would say, Michael, you're so skinny, and that means you're hungry. Eat up. And, I love my grandma. I used to believe that if my grandmother died, that would give me a license to use. And you guys told me, if you experience great sorrow and you use, we understand, but you don't have to. You can stay clean. We've gone through everything and stayed clean. And that's what I've gotten by listening to everybody's stories about living life, We're not human beings sharing our spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings sharing our human experience. And, So I got to do all my, I stopped going to the Connecticut convention, stopped going to the Virginia convention for quite some time, and put a family together. And I've been in relationships, and I've been employable, and I've been fired from these jobs. And life on life's terms, I really believe that things happen, and when I got clean, I was probably the best newcomer. That if you said something that offended me, I would take it personally and very deeply. If I walked into a meeting, there were 100 people there that liked 99 people liked me, and one person didn't. For whatever reason, that person was 20 times bigger in my mind than they ever needed to be. And, someone's pointed that out to me, and it's really changed things a lot. If there's someone that doesn't like me at a meeting, and in a big fellowship, sometimes I feel like this is like junior high or even high school. And sometimes, some places, it almost feels like it. And, I'll just do my best to ignore the drama-causing stuff. Pretty much everyone that says drama, whoops, I said it too. They're the people causing the drama. So I just do my best to accept people and say, hey, welcome. It'll be okay, Sometimes it's like I look around and it's like Narcotics Anonymous is a loosely knit group of singles. And I'd hear people and they would say, oh, these two newcomers are getting together, and so I'm going to try and break them up. And I was like, don't break them up. They'll multiply. Try and keep them together. I'd support you in your relationships. Go for it, It's going to be great. Relationships could be like, Miracle Grow on your character defects. But one thing that I found by sponsoring people is, they get into relationships and they stop calling, and it's like, so what's going on here? And it's like, oh, I don't need to work the steps. I need to work on this relationship. That's actually wrong, though. It'd probably be better if you work on the steps. It's really incredible. I got up this morning, and my wife had wanted to run a race. So she wants to run this 5K. She runs 3 days a week. And I said, I'll run the race with you. Her goal was to set her best time. And so I went to the race, I dressed up for it, and I ran with her. And the first mile, I ran a 9.5-minute mile. And the second mile, I ran a 10-minute mile. And I was beating her. And I know for a fact, the number one thing that I know is that I just am not supposed to beat her because she runs 3 days a week. And so I don't want to win this race. And so anyway, she was straight beating me anyway. By then, she ran her personal best, and I finished right behind her, like 45 seconds behind her. And this is, sort of what I wanted to do with my life. Like, for real, you get in a relationship. What do you want to do with this relationship? You want to spend your life with the person. So look, I ran. This is the second race I run in a year. I ran last Thanksgiving. I ran this morning, and what a great life. It's great to have a relationship with someone where you do things. We have a you don't know. We have a 5-year-old together and a 10-year-old together, and we each had 2 5-year-old daughters when we got together. And now those kids are 18. And like I said, I have a 27-year-old too. And 18-year-old lives with us, teenage daughter. Nobody has any time for that. She got a job at Dunkin' Donuts, and so she needs a ride. She wants to be picked up the second it's over. And it's like she doesn't talk to me. Whatever, she was like about 10 years old, decided she wouldn't talk to me anymore. So she only talks to me if she wants something. And you know what I've decided here recently is that I'm going to buy her a car, and I'm going to teach her to drive it, and I'm going to just say, go. I had decided earlier that she doesn't talk to me and she's not nice. I'm not buying her car. Changed my mind. Isn't that great? I really want her to drive. I want her to be the best person she could be. That's all I ever wanted for my kids. And so it's incredible. This relationship, is, we've had a lot of really great times, and possibly the most pain. Some of the things we've had to deal with have been really painful. And I'm not an expert at relationships, and I still, even with, even old now and with a lot of clean time, I still don't have the best emotional vocabulary. I want to ask, questions like, how am I doing? How's our relationship going? And it doesn't come off like, how are you feeling? It's a good question, This intimacy and this closeness is not easy, even, married 11 years, being with the same woman for 13 years. And, she's a recovering addict. So, it's incredible that Narcotics Anonymous has really given me the ability to have what I think probably most people look and say, I have a regular life. You know what I mean? Like, I'm employable. I was just reading an email from T. Rowe Price, and it said, by the time you're 55, you need to have 7 years' salary saved in your 401k, and if you don't, you're screwed. And I'm like, oh, shit, man, I only have like 2.8 years saved in my 401k. I'm so screwed. And anyway, the last time I read an email from them about how much money I was supposed to have, I was like, oh, I'm screwed. And it's just, to me, if you can't laugh at yourself, then what? Everything's really funny, actually. That's one of the things I figured out about life, man. A lot of things are funny that, people might say. Someone took a picture of me and a few people here, and my wife. I sent it to my wife, and she says, "Your one friend has really great hair," right? I think she was talking about Dwayne, right? And I'm like, "What are you saying? I have one friend? That's really screwed up," We have a good relationship. It's fun like that, and so 3 kids in the house, me and my wife, we got cars, we have running water, we have electricity. It's just incredible. We have a cat. We had 2 dogs. Last weekend, I looked at these dogs, and something's wrong with one of the dogs. And I got a puppy. It's 3. I've had it for 3 weeks. It's like 4 months old, 3 months old, 4 months old. And I'm thinking that he has eaten my 5-year-old's socks, right? I get up in the morning the next day, and like his cage has got socks that he's vomited up and stuffed animals and stuff, and it's like, oh my God, and something's wrong with the dog, you know what I mean? It's like, man, we got to get the dog to the ER, the emergency vet, see what's happening. And so we rushed the dog to the emergency vet, and he's like, well, I want like $3,000 to do an emergency surgery. And my wife's like, money's no object. I don't know where she came up with that. Money's no object. Please save his life. He's just a puppy. We want to do something with him. I want to take him running in a year, or whatever she's thinking. And so the vet keeps him, charges her card, and calls us in the afternoon and says, I think your dog might have been poisoned by mushrooms. So I'm going to do what I can, and I'm not going to do the surgery on the socks, and I'll let you know what's going on. So he takes her, and there's something wrong with my other dog. I've had a dog for a year. And anyway, we look around the yard, and we find mushrooms. We find what looks like amantium. What is it called? The death cap mushroom. So there's like about 11 different kinds of mushrooms in my backwoods. And anyway, we rushed the bulldog over to our other vet on Monday morning, and then Monday afternoon the vet calls and says, your puppy has taken its last breath, and I'm so sorry. And I am just like, oh my gosh, what the heck? Hopefully the vet can do something about my dog. And so the next morning I got a call from the vet, and he says, what I didn't expect, it blew me away too, is like, come on down here to the community animal hospital and say goodbye to your French bulldog, because she's in complete liver failure and you need to say goodbye. And you know what? Sometimes life, you roll out and you have expectations on what it's going to be, and it doesn't go that way, My wife wrote a great big post, and she shared it on Facebook about what happened and took pictures of the mushrooms, and I think 10,000 people have read her post. She wanted people to know that there's an app out there. You can check the different breeds of mushrooms in your yard so your animals don't eat them. And I had a friend that told me that, dogs don't die from that. And we got death caps there, and it says that if a person eats one of these mushrooms, half of one of these mushrooms, they die. I can't even believe it, And I'm really glad that after the post that she wrote, that no one held her responsible, like you're a loser pet owner, you know what I mean? Like, it seriously is the worst thing that happened. Like, for real, I'm like, man, I'm telling you, a family member of mine died this week, and it was super tragic. And the kids are like, when's the dog coming home from the vet? And we had to explain what happened. And and they wailed. You know, we've experienced great loss. And, you know, I'm just sharing my pain. It blew my mind. I held my dog while the vet put her down. And I told her it was going to be okay, and we loved her, and she was the best dog I ever had. And she was the best dog I ever had. Probably about in 1991, I had the guy that is Jeff's sponsor was my sponsor, a guy named Henry. I was at a convention with Henry at Marlikna 9 or something like that. We were in Harrisburg or Lancaster or something. And I was talking to Henry and a guy named Dave, and Henry started picking on him and said, "Dave, you're having an acne breakout. You look like a prepubescent boy." And because Henry busts on people, man, I do like a guy that'll make fun of me just a tiny bit, right? And Dave says, "Henry, I have AIDS and I'm gonna die." And I started crying. I like this guy Dave. He was a good guy. I met him a whole bunch of times. I hugged him. He hugged me. And he said, "Rejoice, rejoice. We have no choice but to carry on." And Dave, I've thought about that. You know, I met a lot of people here in Narcotics Anonymous. I probably met 10,000 people, 20,000 people that were doing this, you know. And I'm a guy who heard somebody say, "I'm betting my life on this. I've bet my life on Narcotics Anonymous." And it's paid off. You know, this bet is a sure thing. All you have to do is work the steps with your sponsor, be there for another recovering addict, show up at your home group. Dave taught me that I could be grateful in the face of the most unfair thing that could happen in my life, you know, because that's what was happening to him. He was losing his life through something that isn't fair. And I love that guy. And that knowledge, that message that he carried to me has done a lot of different things for me. You know, when I was getting fired from my job where I had done what I thought was the greatest thing, I rolled up on my computer and my password didn't work. And the voice in my head said, "Mike, grab your laptop and go home and wipe your hard drive. Screw them." And the voice was probably right. But instead I just sat there, said, "It'll be okay. They can have the computer. They can have all my secrets, you know." And then my phone rang and it was HR, and they called me down to their office and fired me. And, you know, sometimes in life, you know, you think it's the worst thing, and it's like when one door closes, another one opens. God hasn't brought me this far to drop me off. And, you know, I finished off what I was working on at the time, which was I was working on my bachelor's degree. I had 3 classes to go. And when I got it, I got hired by another company with a 40% raise. And it was just like, I was so codependent with this job, I was never going to say goodbye. And they did for me what I couldn't do for myself. And that's the way God works in a lot of times, you know. So, you know, man, I am so grateful. You know, the really great thing about, you know, East Coast Convention is, and I've been to 2 or 3 East Coast conventions, you know, in the 80s and 90. And someone said, "Hey, man, they started the East Coast Convention back up." And that was like, at a time, it was the only convention in a lot of places. And it would go from place to place, and then the convention would leave, and the local NA community would start a convention. And I rolled up trying to see if I could help this East Coast Convention go. I had a dream of being the chair of East Coast Convention. And I showed up at East Coast Convention in 2012 and said, "Give the ball to Realslow. Let me take a chance on it." No one else brought a bid. And I think we threw the best East Coast Convention at that point, but I seen what you guys did down at William & Mary the year that Jeff was the chair. I couldn't even believe what you did. You know, it was such a great convention. Carried the message locally, was broadcasted into jails. And at the end of it, you know, Jeff explained to me there's a lot of NA communities that don't have, you know, they don't even have an HNI. They don't even have a town. You know, that the basic text ending up in some of these jails, you know, the town is there because the jail is there. And the basic text ending up in some of these places may put the message of recovery in a place where it has been unattainable before. And that's what happened in my location. You know, we raised 100 cases of basic text, and 34 ended up in Maryland and Delaware, which is the region that my area is in. And you know, and you never can really tell. The greatest thing about carrying the message in Narcotics Anonymous is that you can count the seeds in an apple, but you can't count the apples in a seed. And when you carry the message, like the people that carry the message to me, they might have looked and said, look at this guy. People judge me. We judge each other, you know. This guy doesn't even have cool high tops or whatever you were thinking, you know. This guy bleaches his own pants, you know. This guy got a short haircut, and he thinks that his hair at the bottom of his collar is short, you know. Before I got clean, my hair went to my elbows. It was funny. I decided I was going to grow my hair long during coronavirus. I'm not there yet. I'm working on it still, you know. But, you know, I decided that the boss doesn't care if I have long hair or not. And you know, my brother's bald, but I'm not. I'm going to grow my hair. I'm going to rub it in his face. Some of the things I think and the goals I want to do with my life are funny. But, you know. You know, we carry the message with a great convention. And one of the things that was really great was there were two groups of people that wanted to have the next convention. One was a group from Virginia, 5 areas, and one was a group from New Jersey. And I got to count the ballots because I was on the board of directors of the East Coast Convention. And you guys smoked them. You beat them like 5-1, 4-1, something like that. And it was because the message that you carried was that you were qualified to carry the message, and you really needed it to carry. You know, these books are going to make a difference. And, you know, the vision of carrying the message by sending basic text into jails was genius, you know, because it's just another way to carry the message. You know, a lot of times, if you've ever done convention service, you'll find that they have money at the end and they fight about it, you know. And at the end of the East Coast Convention, there isn't any fight because all we're going to do with the money is we're going to take all of it and buy basic text. And at the last one, when they told me, you know, that we've put over 20,000 basic texts into the jails up and down the East Coast, I said, man, this is really incredible. You know, this is a convention that's worthwhile. You know, that, you know, why are we doing these conventions? And for real, you know, when you get together and you see your friends, or you reach out to the newcomer and you come and you get a message of hope, you know. The only thing I ever knew about hope before I got clean was hope was a verb. Hope is something you do. You go to the cop spot. You hope you don't end up on the cop's hood or on the ground getting searched. You hope you get away with the drugs. And then I rolled up on Narcotics Anonymous, and I went to meetings I didn't feel like going to, and people would share just what I needed to hear, and I'd leave, and I'd say, oh my gosh, I have hope. I can make it. You know, and it's taken a whole fellowship of people to carry the message to me. I'm so grateful that I have a new way of life that I can share with you, you know. Probably I've touched on all the major important points that I wanted to say. You know, the East Coast Convention, hopefully I have it, you know, it's my will, hopefully it's God's will, that we have it June 25th, 26th, 27th of 2021 at Washington College in Chestertown, Maryland. That's what I'd like more than anything. And if we do, I invite you to come to the convention. It's really great. You know, our location is such a beautiful spiritual backdrop. When I was there, I couldn't even believe we were there. It's such a nice place. You're just a couple blocks from the dorms to where everything's happening. And I parked my car on Friday and I moved it again on Sunday. And the thing that blew me away was we probably have the best food out of any of these locations I've been to since 2012. Like a gourmet chef makes the menu. And I guess I didn't really intend on selling this to you, but for real, I felt like we throw a quality convention in a great location. And, you know, program committee already put the program together, and I think they said they need to change a few speakers. I'm sorry if you want to speak at it. Probably, unless you're not in with Kevin, it's too late. But, you know, hopefully we're there. We'll know if the governor of Maryland says so, we'll be there. If the coronavirus numbers go down, we can do it, you know. And, you know, and for real, you know, if it doesn't happen, I'll be here with you guys in 2022 because I found that this is like, you know, the people that I found that follow this convention around really, really have opened my eyes, and the messages they carry with the lives that they live. Narcotics Anonymous has really grown up. And absolutely, we have so many tools for recovery, so much literature at this point. We're a worldwide fellowship. There's like 80,000 meetings. And Narcotics Anonymous has made possible what used to be impossible. And for that, I am truly, truly grateful. And I think that's about what I wanted to say. So, Jeff, I made it to the freaking stew. Thank you for having me. It was delicious. I was so surprised. I asked Jeff when I got here, because I read about Brunswick stew. Is this the one with the squirrel, the rabbit, and the possum? And he said, "There's no squirrel, rabbit, or possum in this stew." I was a little disappointed, but it was so good that the disappointment has melted away. And anyway. Hey, when I came to Narcotics Anonymous, I've seen a lot of lights come on, and by being a part of this message and being a part of this fellowship, I've seen a lot of lights go out. I've seen a lot of lights come on and shine brightly. And people have had incredible lives. I've made friends with people, and I've watched them get clean. I watched their kids get clean. I've watched people's grandkids get clean. It's happened. People tell me regularly, "Oh, you got clean before I was born," and I guess it's gonna continue on. Like this time is incredible, and it's because Narcotics Anonymous is a proven program of recovery. And what I want to say is, no one can take care of these lights like you. I heard a guy named Pepe share, that his prayer is that you will get this before you destroy yourself. And he had a vision. He helped people, and they farted around with it, or they didn't get it, and they died, or they went to jail forever. And the only person that can really take this seriously and say, "I'm going to go out and grab Narcotics Anonymous by the balls. I am going to be the best recovering addict I can be," is you. There isn't a do-over, Man, and if you're new, if you've relapsed 100 times, welcome back. You can make it this time. I believe in you. And if you're new and you've never tried, like I never tried Narcotics Anonymous before, I've been clean since the first NA meeting that I ever went to. I've not ever relapsed. I've relapsed a whole ton of times before then, and I know what I don't want to do. I know what consequences I don't want. I got crazy using stories. They're crazy. And so I want you to take care of those lights. And maybe a lot less lights will go out, and maybe a lot more lights will come on. It's if you come to meetings and you don't hear your story, tell your story. Help somebody else. You will hear your story. Maybe it's you that's got to tell it. And I've always wanted to reach out to everybody and say, "You can make it, man. We need you. We need your story. You can make it." Addict named Mike, and that's what I wanted to say. Thank you for letting me share.